So, when thinking about political psychology and just the state of political affairs in modern society, it's instructive to compare our situation today with our ancestral condition. So, recall that our ancestral condition was sort of small scale, collaborative hunter gatherer societies, right? And so, under conditions of interdependence, everyone had a stake in the well being of others. Each individual was a potential future collaborator, and so empathy would be a useful psychological trait in such a condition. It would motivate individuals to give care to others when they might be temporarily injured, for example, because that would make good sense. When they heal, they will be a good future collaborator. Norms of sharing were appropriate under these conditions. Counter dominance kept leaders in check and maintained a more egalitarian society. So, in the past, then, our ancestral condition was one of more egalitarian social structures. And we had a long history of evolution of our psychologies based on this type of social arrangement. Today, in modern societies, since agricultural times, we are faced with societies with much greater inequality. And that inequality poses new challenges for maintaining cooperation in society. First of all, we've learned that inequality is correlated to greater health disparities. You'll recall the health gradient that we found. And it's not just that wealthier folks are healthier than poor folks. The gradient goes all the way down the status hierarchy. And it's not just about decision making as well, poor decision making like smoking. Because if you compare smokers higher up in the status hierarchy with smokers lower down, again, it is the higher status individuals that have the better health. Now, the consensus seems to be that a lack of control in one's life is one important factor, and a lack of control increases as you go down the social hierarchy. So folks down here who are relatively poor, they're often making decisions from a set of unfavorable options. They're constantly making trade-offs, and the spent game, simulated that condition, and that causes chronic stress. And chronic stress, day in, day out stress, is not good for the body. Now, the greater health needs then of unequal societies, especially then those lower on the socioeconomic status, that becomes a political issue because somebody's going to need to pay for health care. And so the political process will need to figure out a fair distribution of that burden. And this is what justice is all about. For some scholars, they might define justice as figuring out the fair distribution of the benefits and burdens of social life. Now, in addition to the scarcity felt by poor people, it not only causes sort of bodily injury, you might say, but it also affects the mind in the area of decision making. This too has political implications. If your bad outcome is the result of poor decisions, then others in society might conclude that you deserved what you got, and so government assistance is not fair, right? So if scarcity leads to bad decision making, that has social implications. The question is, who or what are we going to blame for those bad outcomes? If we put it all on the individual, then that is one type of solution. If we recognize that the situation is partly responsible for poor decisions, then that also has a different implication. If situational factors, if the scarcity itself is leading to poor outcomes, then an obvious remedy would be to reduce the scarcity, to supply greater resources to poor people. If the poor decisions are the result of an individual failure, then that suggests perhaps a different type of solution, that they deserve what they get. So all of these forces then are making cooperation more difficult in societies with greater inequality. Finally, let's consider the lower trust that is associated with greater inequality. The concentration of wealth sets up a dynamic where the wealthy become targets of the demands of the poor, right? And if you feel like you're a target, that others are trying to get your stuff, well, that potential sort of threat is not good for sustaining trust, right? On the other hand, the poor are likely to conclude that the wealthy don't really care about them. Otherwise, they would see greater resources directed their way. So with greater inequality, it kind of provokes this us versus them mentality. And that's not good for levels of trust between individuals and society. So now when we try to figure out why do people align with different political parties, all of these issues that we've just been mentioning here are going to play a role. So different political parties will have different views of justice and freedom and fairness and who deserves what. And so the political parties will propose sort of solutions to some of these social issues that we've been discussing.